Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Hello, and welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast. If you are a regular listener to the QCMP, you'll know that this is a monthly podcast. However, I have decided to do a little something extra each month called the Corona Files. Each month, I will highlight a musician to discuss how the coronavirus has impacted them and what they are doing to cope during these difficult times. In this first installment of the Corona Files, I had the opportunity to talk with Mike Graci. If you're not familiar with Mike, he's a working musician, a person who makes a living entirely from music. He's a multi-talented drummer who plays with several groups, including the tribute band called Chicago Rewired, and he's also the owner of Mike Graci Music Lessons in Matthews, North Carolina. Normally, I would have guests of the QCMP come to the studio, but because of social distancing, I thought it better to do our interview by video conferencing. And that's a first for the QCMP. All right, Mike, good to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to it. I heard a lot about the podcast.
Yeah, it's unfortunately we're doing this based around the coronavirus. You know, I would have loved to have you come here in person. And we originally talked about that, and then I kind of thought, well, you know what? They're saying social distancing, and then I was just like, all right, let's just do it via Skype and that, or Zoom, and that'll kind of help us out a little bit. So.
Oh, that's fine.
Anyway, so tell me about your background. Are you originally from the Charlotte area?
So I grew up in Long Island, and then moved here with my family in 2007. And the main reason I moved here was to be a musician full time. I always did it in Long Island, and I always played in my early 20s. I got my degree in Long Island for music. I taught when I was 19 at two different stores, kind of well-known stores back there. And then I had a house and everything on Long Island, but it's expensive to live there. So around 2007, I had two young kids, 1 year old and 2. So I talked, me and my wife decided to come to Charlotte because it was a growing city, which it still is. And we decided to come here, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, I think we were talking before we started recording the podcast, and I told you about me being from Long Island too. So I know exactly what you're talking about with expenses and trying to get away from that and better cost of living basically in the shore.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Cool. So you're a drummer by trade. What's your music background in drumming?
I started when I was 12, and I took lessons for many years. And I think for 13 years, I studied from some heavyweight guys, Dom Famularo, who's a well-known drummer. Mm-hmm. He's on the cover of Modern Drummer a little while back. And other guys like Joe Franco, Al Miller, Jim Chapin. These are all came out of the Long Island Drum Center, which is still around, a really well-known drum school out of Long Island, still there.
Does Bobby the Rondinelli still own it?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I think he owned one at one time. I'm not sure if he still owns. They kind of branched out. Yeah. I'm not sure how many are still left. But I know the main Long Island Drum Center is still around. They're obviously doing more online stuff these days. And,
I think Bobby Rondinelli used to play in Rainbow with Richie Blackmore.
That's right. A great drummer, great guy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I studied with them, and then I got my degree in music from National Community College, and I went to C.W. Post Long Island University, and I got my degree. I was in my early 20s, and I started playing gigs. And I could be a school teacher. I think we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I got an education, but I stuck with the private lessons and doing shows and build up my lessons.
That's awesome. And then while you're down here in Charlotte, you're doing a lot of stuff while you're down here. Right. So you're not only a player, you're a teacher, you're a small business owner, and you're a performer.
Right.
So you're out playing. You've got, how many groups? You got REO Survivor. Mm-hmm. You've got the New Kids, the Superfly 90s tribute band. You got Chicago Rewired.
Right.
You got Kids in America, the 80 tribute band. And on top of that, you run Mike Graci Music Lessons down in Matthews. So, dude, you're like this well-rounded musician entrepreneurial type.
That's right.
You've carved out a great niche for yourself here in Charlotte in the last little over a decade. 10.5 years that you've been down here?
Yeah.
14 years.
Actually, yeah, it's about 13 to 14 years. The bands are all I'm in. I actually run them. To give you a quick story, Chicago Rewired started about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And to do a spin off of that, because it's a great band, we were asked to do REO Speedwagon and Survivor and we said, okay, let's do it. And we just had the right personnel, the right vocals, and that's been starting to take off for the last 2 years. So Chicago Rewired is really REO Survivor. REO Survivor is actually is without the horn section. So we got 8 guys in Chicago Rewired. There's 5 in the REO Speedwagon. Kids in America came afterwards. Chicago Rewired is about 5 years. Kids in America is about 3 or 3.5. Mm-hmm. And that was obviously an 80s tribute experience I wanted to do. And then that sort of took off right out of the get-go. Took off really good. And Chicago Rewired was more of a slow burn. And then we started doing New Kids. So see, Kids America is about 3.5 years old. New Kids is maybe a year and a half, because we were like, well, we're doing so good with the 80s. Why don't we, do a 90s show too? But we just don't play. We wear the clothes and we put on a show. It's a kind of a well-oiled machine, and it's when the economy is right and things are right. I got a ton of requests for Kids in America. A lot of shows we can't do because they're already booked, so that's not a bad position to be in. But so between both bands, and my, I'm doing pretty well playing live. I got guys to cover for me when we have double shows going on. I can't play 2 places at one time. And then the School of Music is about 2 years old. I think we talked a little bit about this. You taught at the same place I did. That's well-known school in the Charlotte area. Right. And then I broke out. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't mind saying it's Music and Arts.
Okay. Music and Arts.
Great place.
Okay. So I worked at Music and Arts too. I was teaching here on my own, working with them. And I said, well, wait a minute. Why don't I just start my own School of Music? I felt like I could do it. So that we built up to probably around 125 students. Wow. There's about nine teachers now, including
what you teach all instruments, or is it not drum focused, is it?
No, well, that's the funny thing. It started out, to be more drum focused because that's what I do and that's what I was known for. And I got another drum teacher in here because I couldn't do all the students anyway. The bands were really playing a lot. And then I ended up building 3 different rooms and a waiting room here. So I said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to need, let's do some more instruments. So I sit over, started advertising more about, doing guitar, vocals, piano, ukulele and all that stuff, songwriting. We do. So I got the right guys, being involved with music so much, it's a lot easier when like, hey man, this guy, I know he's a great player, great guy, great teacher. He teaches also. Hey, you want to come on board? So I'm able to get really guys I know too that are friends of mine. So it's been a great thing to have friends, guys you trust, guys you know are talented, who knows what they're doing, also working for you. So it's going great.
That's fantastic, man. So you're pretty much got the lessons during the day, and then in the evening, I'm guessing you're out performing and doing all these other things.
There's a lot of a lot of work to be involved as far as coordination. Getting guys to cover when that type of. So I spend a lot of time with that, but it's all a good thing when things are normal now. Obviously, with the virus has changed a lot of things.
Sure. Well, we were talking before. I mean, you've got, of course, the lessons that we were just talking about, but with Chicago Rewired, we had talked about before we started recording. You do some traveling with that.
Yes.
So that in itself, and what you're saying with scheduling. So, all right. So here's my question. The whole focus of this particular interview, and we're going to have you back on another time to talk about everything more in depth that you do. But I wanted to talk about how the coronavirus has affected musicians in the area. And you were a great person to talk to because you've got the music lessons, you've got a band that goes out of state to perform, and you also perform in the area, in the region.
That's right.
So let's just talk about the performing aspect first. How has this started to affect you as a musician in the performing area?
Well, it did, and it did affect it big time. And I'm going to give you the real lowdown, the kind of behind the scenes, because I'm involved, I think, more than just bars. So there's more that goes on in that type of situation. So what happened was when you're doing a tour down in Florida, like we were Chicago Rewired, I think, had 38 dates, and we were lucky. We were great, and I'm grateful that 3/4 of it was done. We had a 2-week break, and of course, in that 2-week break, all hell broke loose. With the virus, and so it's funny. The night we were going back, we were on a plane, and they started canceling flights overseas and all this stuff, and we were going back for our last part of the tour, and I was not hopeful, and nor was the band, and so we got there. We did end up doing one show, and then the whole thing just blew up. They were, we had our house rental. We had to get out of. All the other shows were canceled. That was right when March Madness was canceled. When I heard all that, NBA, all that stuff, we knew that it was a bad thing going on. So we did the one show, and then we got our house rental. I had to get that on the because that was expensive. I was able to get Airbnb was able to get back money and stuff. So and we just got back home. I had to get back home really quick because I had to attend to my music school, which I knew was going to be hit next.
So let me ask you a question. When you were down in Florida, it sounds like, at least from the way you were saying, that it just kind of stopped right away. It wasn't like one show canceled, but one show was still going on and one show canceled. It was
weird because we had one show that night when we landed. We landed on Thursday, and then we had a show that Thursday, and there was one day off, a Friday, and then we had a double show on Saturday, and then there was like a double show, I think, on the Monday. So there was usually like one day in between, and we had, I think, 7 shows left in about 8 days. But it was like, oh, wait, the one a week from now, that's going to cancel. Okay, wait, well, let's hang in there. We still got, one that's 2 days from now. They're trying to hang in there. No, that just canceled, and it just kind of, caved in within literally about 24 hours.
Just falling like dominoes.
Everything, and it was hard to take because, we had built ourselves up, and it was a financially good tour for everybody. And, it was obviously a pretty somber thing to be happening. Well, all at once. It's what I think what was hard about this whole thing was it wasn't like sometimes you get like a recession where you kind of see the economy changing over, even though there was talks of a recession because everything's been so booming for so many years. It was sort of like you're standing there and somebody just pulls the rug out from you. Yeah. And it just stops. And that I think was I had a hard time. I had a hard time with the whole thing. I was pretty emotional. I was pretty upset about it all. And not just the shows being canceled, just what was going on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know for me here in Charlotte, and we'll talk about how it affected you too in a sec. I mean, it was just, it was slowly starting to happen because it hadn't hit Charlotte quite yet. And there were a couple of gigs I was playing. And then I just started looking at Facebook. I played a gig on a Saturday night. And then all of a sudden I got I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll still hold on for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And then I got a cancellation for the following week, but another place didn't cancel. But then I saw they closed on Facebook. They're like, sorry, we're just closed. And I was like,
right. And you're finding out through different sources. Yeah. And that's kind of, that's the hard part, where you kind of, it's even when we come back, because Kids in America had shows that I was coming back for in between, and they were getting canceled, and it's still going on because they're canceling, they're moving it up to, let's say, June. Well, let's not try June. We're not sure now because of what's going on. So what do I think? I don't think it's going. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be a 1 or 2 month thing. That's just my feeling. I hope I'm wrong. I think it's going to be more than that.
Yeah. Let me ask. So when you got back from Florida from the Chicago Rewired, and that tour started to fall apart because of the virus. When you got back to Charlotte, what was the situation with performances when you got back here? Had you came right back, started calling people, or were people sending you emails just canceling?
I came back. I had some Kids in America shows, and the 2 shows actually did happen. One was a wedding. This is before right before they said no groups under 100 or over 100. So they had a small wedding happening. There's a small corporate party that happened. So that's where we were at. Then once they said, once it was like, well, you can't really have gatherings anymore. Then everybody just, all the bars said, well, we can't do this. We can't even have people here. So it just all basically fell apart within a 2-week span,
Yeah, it felt like it was, man, it just happened I know it was over a few days, but I mean, it happened. It felt like it happened really fast.
Yeah.
Rob.
But
Yeah.
you can see that this was going to be a really bad situation.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, just as for the heck of it, I have all these dates listed on my calendar on my website, and I didn't take them off. I've just gone in and crossed them off.
Yeah.
Just to see, just to let everybody know. It's like, hey, I was planning on playing, but this is all coronavirus. This is what happened, and just for my own sake and other people wanted to know, like, to keep track of it. I could easily keep track of it. I'm a visual kind of person like that. I want to see, how it's really affected me as a player.
It's crazy because we having Chicago Rewired and Kids in America and the other bands, there's a lot of times, like I was telling you, there's double shows happening where I'm playing one place, there's a guy covering me on drums at another gig. So we have this, me and my wife have this folder of all these contracts and stuff. And even the bar gigs and stuff, they don't have contracts, but we still have a lot of contracted work.
Sure.
And we went through it just yesterday, and it was like, pull this out. We don't know what's going on with this. This one emailed, they're not sure. It's just so much unknown that it's a lot of anxiety, and it's really stressful, So, it went from having this, I think one of the hardest part I was telling somebody was 2 months ago, or even 6 weeks ago, I was, man, this is the best year I'm ever going to have. I had all these great contracts, and it literally just, like you said, it just fell apart within a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of ripped apart.
I was just telling a friend of mine the other day, at a certain point, about a year and a half ago, I would played an immense amount of gigs last year, more than probably I've ever played in a single year. And I say that because it enabled me to help pay off my student loans,
Right, yeah.
And so at the beginning of the year, I started and I didn't have any student loans. I was like, this is awesome. And I'm going to have an amazing year. I'm going to be able to play, and all this money's actually going to come to me, and I'll be able to do this, and then this thing hit. And I'm thinking to myself, thank God, on one hand, I paid off my student loans. I don't have that nut to bear every month.
Right.
And then on the other hand, I'm like, man, how many other people are even more affected than me? Because,
and I think that, I'm glad that they're covering this in the gig, some kind of gig clause I'm hearing about. When we're doing this interview right now, they're still trying to work on this whole stimulus.
Yeah.
But I think what a lot of people don't realize is, not all musicians are out there, making, there are musicians making a good or very good living, doing what, depending on how you do it. If you're doing solo shows or, tribute acts and stuff. And so it's not just a few dollars down. It's a hell of a lot more. And, that's not easy to swallow, so, that's where, especially as a band leader, you get a better cut because you do all the work. But, so it is not an easy pill to swallow, and that's the tough part.
I think a lot of people, when they think musicians, they just think of famous millionaires making money playing huge stadium shows. But, 99% of our musicians are everyday people gigging, teaching lessons.
Right.
That's how they make their income. Yeah, it's not, on a massive, 20 countries tour selling millions of albums. No. It's not the way it is for most.
And that, for me to tick, to properly tick the right way, I need my lessons and my gigs both to be working like they have been, and I was having, pretty good, stable thing going on. And, all of a sudden one gets cut out and the other one's sort of slowly dying. And, and I'll talk a little bit about the lessons, but and you're sort of spending all your time propping that up. And I am keeping it propped up, but, it's taking a heck of a lot of work to keep it propped up. But you got to do what you got to do, These are the times that we were in, So,
so just from where we're recovering, I mean, as far as, the performance, the money making, making a living from performing has essentially stopped right now.
Totally stopped. Stopped.
Not just for you, but of course everybody in
Charlotte. I haven't done really streaming. Some guys, I don't want to comment too much on the streaming part because I hear some guys are making money. I hear some guys are not. I hear some guys don't care about the money.
Right.
So there's different avenues. But for a band, it's a little hard because there's the social distancing thing, and then you have people in your band may have asthma or whatever. So it's hard to really get a fire. You could if you got everybody on board, but you have to
right.
a big stage. Everybody has to be spread apart. Are you guys near each other setting up? I don't want to put anybody I'm with in danger. So for me, I haven't done a lot of the streaming of bands. There's bands doing it, and God bless them. I'm glad they're keeping it alive. Sure. But I haven't done it more, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to keep my, moving everybody online with the lessons and stuff.
So let's get into that. What's you've got the Mike Graci Lessons. You guys are down in Matthews.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many students? What do you before the virus hit? How many teachers do you have? How many? What's the studio hold of students?
Sure. So it's 3 lesson rooms. I was teaching my own about 45 a week, and then I started to expand my studio, and I got 3 rooms. So and I got a waiting room. So we're around 100 and a quarter.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do about 100 and a quarter. It's only it's really 2 years old, but I really only pushed it, let's say, the last year. I really was at my max. I only have three teaching rooms here. I'm one guy trying to run it. I still teach my own because I like to teach and all that. And I still have students have long term. I'm not just going to stop them. So, so I still teach it. So for me, it was more than I can handle, the 125. And I'm grateful it grown, through word of mouth and reputation of being a really good school. So it grew. But, that's now become, okay, I need this to keep going, and it is. But it is, we moved everybody who wanted to move to virtual lessons. And once they do it, they realize, oh, this is pretty cool. But I had to train the teachers. A lot of people really didn't even know how to do it. Like what is Zoom? What is Skype? How do I do it? What do I, you can even do video conference through Facebook Messenger, which I knew about, but a lot of people don't even know that, so I had to train everybody and then get my teachers to let all the students know, hey, this is how we're going to go. It's going to be an easy transformation. And we're near the end of that now. So we got pretty much everybody over to online who wanted to move online.
So how's the impact of the virus affected the lessons besides moving everybody online? Have you lost students? Have you?
Yes.
What's the situation?
We've lost probably about 20%.
Wow.
And I'm saying that the tricky part is this all happened really after the first I was telling you earlier, of the month. So people had already kind of paid for the month. And there are some who stopped, but most of the people say, probably said, let's go through the month. And I was able to, the good thing is you're able to get them to virtual lessons. The tricky part is there's a new month coming up where I'm sending out new invoices, trying to talk to people and to see who continue on, not only because of virtual lessons, but their income has changed. Their husband lost their job all of a sudden, their wife lost their job, they both lost their job.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? I'm going to try to make it where in April, hey, you have a problem financially, let's do half price. We'll add it up. I'll get the teachers paid. I don't care if I make any money off the lessons. Get them paid. Let the teachers go. Keep going. We'll figure it out 3 months, stuff like that.
And you were telling me before we start recording,
Mm-hmm.
talking, you had said you were getting, you used to get a lot of email inquiries. And then all of a sudden the virus, COVID-19 hit. And then all of a sudden what happened?
It's crazy, between, and my wife would know this. I mean, I'd wake up, I start early. I start about 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd hit my emails. And between the bands, all the different bands and the lessons, man, I would sit to emails for a couple hours, just, people asking about lessons, how much, how does it work? Hey, is this band available? Heard you guys, or agent hit me up. So I'd have at least, God, I mean, on any given day, minimum of new inquiries on bands or lessons on any given day, at least 6 new inquiries. Then it'll all work out, but
right.
But it's weird how this works between the bands and the lessons. I don't think I've gotten 6 inquiries combined with everything in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
It just stopped. Like the whole business world stopped. So that's the scary part.
And I'm thinking as we're talking, it's not even you that's just affected your bottom line as a musician. It's the teachers who work for you. Their bottom line starts to get affected. Not to mention the musicians that you perform with, and of course the businesses, the bars, the restaurants, and everybody else.
Right.
But I mean, our focus right now is on the music and how it's affecting everybody else.
And it's tough, because the teachers. I know here most of them are generally full timers. They do what I do. They play gigs and they teach. So, I had to, kind of talk to some of the parents, through an email to say, hey, look, if you can keep the lessons going, please, not even for me or these, the teachers here, they would, if we can get through this, just try to hang in there. We'll work with you. Because they just got a heavy hit on gigs. I think a lot of times people don't realize that these are working musicians and they are making a living playing music. So, and most of my guys do that. So, including me. So, just to let them know, if you can keep it going, it'd be really appreciated. And I got a really good response on that. They were like, hey man, you know what? What's the point in music? Well, love is in music. We'll keep the lessons going. So I've gotten a lot of that. So there's been, it's not been all dismal. There's been a lot of people who already signed up and been like, man, we're going to be with you guys. Don't worry about it. So it was nice to hear that. It made me feel good.
Have you been teaching online lessons yourself too?
Yes. So for me, it's not bad. It depends on the type of teacher you're on. And it's funny you ask that question because it's actually a really important question. Online lessons can go really good, so or bad. And they can go bad. And forget about, you have to get obviously good video quality and all that going. Sure. Get Wi-Fi, whatever, with Zoom, if it's Skype, make sure you have good quality lessons, good camera angle, all that. But I teach progressively. So for me, I use most of my students are on 1 to 3 or even 4 books. I have a handbook. This is me as a drum teacher. One for drum beats, one for drum fills. So I kind of, some are on jazz. So I kind of, my students, as they continue on, they go on to more books. So it's a little easier because I have a copy here. As long as I have a good signal, I can see what they're doing, hear what they're doing. I can follow along and say, okay, wait a minute, you're doing example 8 wrong here. And it's almost the same. So for me, now, if you're the type of teacher who's sort of, which I'm not that, people teach the way they teach, and there's really no right or wrong. I'm just not that. But the people who teach sort of winging it, they have more of a problem because how do you teach that lesson? You know? So I don't teach that way, and nor most of my teachers, because when they hired here, I talked to them about how
their approach. Yeah.
So most of them don't teach that way. So they don't. It's not been. But if you're kind of winging it in your lessons, what I mean by that, you don't really have lesson plans,
right,
or something progressive. That's tough to teach that way. I don't teach that way. Period. I'm not a fan of that. But it's not bad for me. The funny thing is, the people say, "Well, how's this going to work?" I said, "Well, all right, let's start the lesson." They get out the book, and literally within 10 minutes, they're like, right into the lesson. Nothing's changed. Right. So it's. For me, I think personally, there's been 2 people that dropped off, and I teach about 38 or so. So I'm doing pretty well. And my teachers, like I said, were about 20% drop off, but most of it really is more because they just can't afford it.
The problem for me with the online lessons is not the structure of them; it's the lack of. It's a new way of having to teach. I'm a very hands-on teacher, teaching guitar. So I'm always constantly, no, let me adjust your hand. Do this with your fingers. Do this, move that. That's the kind of way I am with teaching. And sometimes telling somebody online and pointing, here, move your finger, move your arm. That's hard.
When you get into technique, that is tough. And I think what I do is for the time we're doing the online, I don't get into my technique part as much as I'd like to because you can't really. So, that part of it, yes, that part, I totally agree. You are affected when you're not one-on-one with the student. Definitely.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
But you can make, at least with, I haven't used the other applications, but I do know with like Zoom, you can do a share screen. So if I want to point to something in a book, that just means you have to prep in advance, though. You have to have, a PDF available of the book and available to pull it up when you want for that student.
I tell you what I've been doing is that happens to me where we're working on something. I don't have a copy. And we're in the middle lesson. So I say, it's all about I tell my teachers, it's all about improv. Like when you're at a gig and somebody calls out the song, you're like, whoa, wait, I kind of know, well, you got to, can you make that happen? So what I've been having the students do is hold up your book to the camera. And I take it, and I take a nice snapshot. I pull it up on my phone, and I'm now all of a sudden right on middle lesson. I'm watching it. I'm reading their music. So I've been doing stuff like that right in the lesson, like taking a screenshot of it.
That's probably what I'm going to need to do because I have 1 or 2 of the books, but there's a couple that I don't have.
Just
and when I thought about it,
just have them hold it up and take a picture and just blow it up on your phone. It works.
Well, by the time I got up to the music store, they had started closing now. They're not open regularly. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah. The other issue is that I don't know. I'm sure you do it.
Or have them take a picture of it and just text you it.
Yeah, that's good too.
That's
it's also the playing along with music because you have the latency issue.
Well, playing along with music, I can't say I've abandoned it, but I don't do a lot of it. Even when I have some students who are like, really song people more than they are book people. Right. And I said, this is a great time to work in your hands. Let's get out that stick control book, and it's kind of funny because you get into stuff that you really need to be doing that they try to get away from sometimes because it's not the stuff they really want to do. But they start going, and I just get them into into that. It's hard on songs because there is a latency stuff. You know, so it's really hard to do songs online.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me as in the way that I teach, of course, we've got technique and we've got theory and we've got all these other things. But when kids are learning new chords on guitar, I want them to be able to play along with a song so that they can, do the chord change and things like that. So that makes it difficult, but I can always just have them put it on in the background and let me listen to them while they're playing.
Yeah. The ones that are in the middle of songs, I just tell them, look, can you play it on your end? Yes. I can't play it through your earbuds. It ain't going to work. I need to hear it. So, I try to set them up for, hey, if you're going to do the song, can you get it to play, on your end so I can hear it and then play along. And that's how I've been doing it. With drums, you just kind of, sometimes it's like, wait a minute, listen, bandit, I can't hear anything right now. But there are other times it's weird, like, the signal's really clear, so I can hear everything perfect, and then we're good. It's just it's improvising. It's great, it's improvising when you don't really want to, but you have to. So sometimes it's beneficial though. Like I said, you get into those stuff that you've been wanting to do with them, and you get into into hand tech, hand exercises, foot exercises, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So, Mike, we'll start wrapping some things up, but I wanted to find out from you. Do you have any suggestions that other musicians could follow during this time? Things they can do to keep up their making their living, or things that you found to help cope with dealing with this tough time.
It's a great question, and it's like, what do you do? All of a sudden, your world just stopped. Your world just, especially if you're a performing musician. And there are a lot of guys I know who make a good living just performing. They have they do solo acts, they do a 2-piece, they play 5, 6, 7 nights a week. They'll play for a few $100. They put out a tip jar. On a Tuesday night, they're making a good buck in the corner of a restaurant that's now gone. So how do you I think the environment that this is great for. Well, I don't know anything's great, but you can do it if you are like, it's harder for me, like as a bass player, drummer, but if you're a solo guy, who can sing well and can do, and there's plenty of, there's a lot of work out there with these guys. I think a lot of them are capitalizing by doing this streaming, having a live virtual tip jar, and stuff like that. And I'm hearing some pretty good numbers coming in for guys who are promoting it right, and having, I think it's funny because I'm having a conference call with an agent tomorrow. He actually called me up and said, "Will you be part of this conference call?" And what we're doing, and even though I'm not doing streaming myself right now, is I'm helping coordinate where we're going to get everybody, and this is going to happen tomorrow, 2:00. We're doing a conference call where we're going to try to get everybody who's doing streaming not overlapping, because that's one guy's doing the content, another guy's doing the content, and what we're doing is we're making it worse for each other instead of helping each other. So let's have a guy do, let's say John, let's say a guy like Matt Strafford. Matt Strafford's been around; he plays a lot solo shows. Mm-hmm. Let's say a guy like Matt. Matt's doing concerts 7 to 8:30 on Friday night. From 8:30 to 9:30 will be somebody else who's doing, so we have some kind of concert calendar, and maybe even get like a Facebook flyer of all the shows going on Friday night, shows going on Saturday night, so this way guys are not overlapping and being in competition, and it will also help promote each other, because remember, if we're promoting each other, when you go to play, you're going to get promotion too. So that's what we're trying to get more coordination, because it's great that everybody's doing streaming, but we got to get it more under control.
Yeah. I had a friend email me, and she said, "Are you guys gonna? Are you gonna do a live stream?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What about this weekend?" And I started looking at all of my friends posting stuff for the weekend. I'm like, well, I mean, all these other people are playing. I mean, then the only people who are going to watch me are my friends, right? From out of state, and or maybe. I don't know if my friends on Facebook who live in the area are going to be watching somebody else, or if they'd be tuning in for me because it will be happening at the same time. Right. So that's a great thing.
That's what we're trying. We're trying to get a guy like Matt, like you, and where you're not in cop. So we're I think there's great opportunity here for in that realm, and teaching. If you're a teacher, go to virtual. If you don't know, if you're not sure of it, give it a shot because you can continue teaching that way. And like I said, we lost maybe 20%. I'm probably with the new invoices going out, maybe it'll be about 35%. But you know what? It's still better than zero. So you have to make the best of the situation. And you got to keep something coming in, right? You got to keep it going. And have good quality too. Make sure you're not sitting there on your phone where you don't want to. I think a lot of the problem I see too is try not to just stick up your phone. Try to get good audio. A good video camera, a quality so it sounds good because you don't want to undersell yourself when people are like, I don't know, you don't know about this guy, and it's not that he's not talented, it's just the audio's off.
Right. Yeah. So, and be prompt.
So those things are really important where sometimes I think musicians, we have a habit, and I see it a lot where guys want to go really the easiest route or the quickest route, and that's not always the best route.
Yeah, it's doing the online lessons as we were just talking about. It's another challenge to overcome, and I think there's a little bit of a learning curve just to be able to do it, particularly if your teaching style is more geared towards in-person kind of thing. And I think if you are teaching online, you're going to need to be a little bit more organized with your stuff.
You do. And I think I kind of, when I go in there, it's the first time with the students, and it's not just, I have a lot of adult students myself. So it's not just the kids too, it's the parent, the adults who are like, man, all right, let's try this. You can see they're kind of like, but if you go in there like, hey, how's it going? Okay, fix your camera. Let's spend 10 minutes getting this right. And cause they don't know, usually they have the camera facing them. All right, let's get it on your drum set. Let's, and there are times where it's not really on the drum set, but I can hear them clear. I'm good.
Sure.
I can hear them. I'm good. We can work with this. You have to just be open-minded, flexible, and be, confident and also have a positive outlook. If you kind of want to go into your lesson like, well, I don't know, man, this is tough to, like that, it's going to turn people off. You have to go in there with a positive attitude. And you see that generally, that it's not so bad, but it is hard when you're an in-person type guy. I completely agree. But hey, this is all temporary, right? So, it's not going to be for a year. Hopefully it's a month or two, but let's say 3 or 4. For 3 or 4 months, we make it work.
And if anything, you pick up some new skills.
That's right.
You're going to advertise a little, you're going to pick up some advertising skills. You're going to pick up some teaching skills more, things you might not have done. I mean, I'm even thinking now on my website, well, for the future now, I'll offer online lessons rather than just in-person lessons.
It's funny because the first thing I did on my site, MikeGraci.com, is right away, like 2 weeks ago, I talked to my web guy. I said, look, we got to put up about virtual, and right in the head, hey, Mike Graci is doing virtual lessons. I think that's helped me a lot, just by changing my website. So when people say, oh, this guy does virtual, great. There's people out there who will sign up who like it because they're home now. They have the time. Their job income hasn't changed a lot. The kids are home. Wow, this is great. So there isn't a demographic out there you can grab now of people who don't want to drive to a lesson in rush hour.
Sure.
So or their parents have these really busy schedules. They don't have the time. They can barely make it work. So now my kid can be at home and do a lesson, or they're homeschooled or whatever. So there's definitely a demographic out there for this too. You have to be on top of it though, and want to learn what's out there.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. I mean, I guess this hit at almost a great time for in time per se, because we have online lessons. We have Amazon, which will ship stuff to us, in a couple of days. I mean, if this was, 30, 40 years ago, things might have been even tougher, but we have open communication with cell phones. We have internet conferencing. So the timing of this self-quarantine in times of technology have kind of hit it a good time.
And it is taking advantage of technology. And it's funny because the first week this all happened, 2 weeks ago, my teachers were still coming in here at the time and they were just moving students over to online. And I usually use my laptop when I do virtual lessons.
Right.
And I saw them on their phones and they had clear quality. I'm like, wait a minute, let me, so I was learning from some of my teachers who were just using their phones. If you have a good quality phone and you're not distorting, so I was able to get, some really good angles and stuff on my phone on the stand. So I started using my phone for some lessons. So, it's just taking technology and just making, lemonade out of lemons type of thing,
Yeah, you got
to get out of it,
You got to figure it out. I mean, the world's got to go on. I mean, we might be sitting in our houses, with limited interaction with everybody, but I mean, the world's got to go on. You got to get out, and even if it's in a virtual world that we create for ourselves, we get out and we do what we got to do. What we got to do. And
I think once people do it, they realize, that it can be done. And it's funny because I actually had some new signups just today from people with teachers who were teaching in people's homes who are just not going there for obvious reasons, but they won't go to virtual. And the student's like, I want to continue my lessons. I said, wait, we're doing virtual here. So I had 2 people sign up today because, I guess either they didn't need the income to teacher or they don't want to learn about technology. I couldn't tell you,
right.
but I think it's foolish not to at least learn about it, at least try.
Yeah. You got to do something. Hey, Mike, before I forget, how do we get in touch with you? Because like I said, we'll have you on another time, talk about all the bands and the lessons and more in depth. But the focus today, as I said earlier, was just on how it's affected us as musicians, the COVID-19. But how do we get in touch with you? If people are interested in lessons or people want to hire one of the bands, how do we get in touch?
Sure. So you can go to for lessons, MikeGraci.com. That's MikeGraci.com. And it gives you all the teachers there, talks about us going virtual. I really did my website over it's funny, I just did over about 2 months ago and all this happened. And I have a nice looking website that the best I ever had looking. So sort of, I kind of got lucky there just to have it the right way at the right time. But MikeGraci.com for lessons or you can contact me on email at Drum Mission, it's Drum Mission with 2 M's and 2 S's. DRUMMISSION, Drum Mission.
Okay.
And I'm old school at AOL.com. And the reason why I have AOL because I've been doing business my whole life on my own, and I struggle with trying to go to another email. I feel I'm going to lose something. So, but yeah, that's my own issue. But anyway, so Drum Mission at AOL.com or MikeGraci.com. And for the bands and all that, you just hit me up. And I am still getting some inquiries, for the later part for the bands, October, November. But it's I'd like to get it back to normal soon.
I think we all would. We can't wait.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Mike. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast today, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all the things.
Hey, man, Matt, thanks a lot for having me. Man, when you asked me, I was like, why would you want to, because we've never met. But, I guess I do have a name out there with the bands and the lessons. So maybe, made me feel good that, somebody, you guys thought of me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, it was great having you.
Thank you. And let's get together. And like you said, when this thing's like a little bit of history, which it will be, let's do that,
We will.
I hope you enjoyed this first installment of the Corona Files. Be well and stay safe.